We're here with a Southern United States legend.
Lord have mercy.
Hi, this is Sean with Voices Levon, and we're here in St. Joseph's Brewery and Cathedral downtown Indianapolis with a Southern legend that happens to be in town this weekend, Trey Herring, who has produced Carolina Bourbon. Trey Herring's Carolina Bourbon. We're going to talk about that today. Brendan Corder, he is our man of knowledge for the state. He is certified on all three levels of spirits, wine, and beer for education, inspiration, and training. For a lot of people throughout the state. So we appreciate his insight. Brandon, would you like to kind of start us off? And
Sure. So first and foremost, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, thanks,
it's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, where were you born, and describe the area?
Where was I born? Well, I was born by the river in a little shack.
Is that right?
Yeah, no. Actually, I was born in Goldsboro, North Carolina. So the eastern part of North Carolina. It's about an hour east of Raleigh.
Okay.
And about 45 minutes west of New Bern. So it's right between Raleigh and the coast. It's a Wayne County. It's a farming county. So I grew up on a hog farm.
Okay.
My father was a farmer. My grandfather was a farmer. They grew all types of crops: tobacco, corn, soybeans, and then also raised hogs and cows. And so I grew up on a farm as a little kid. Some of my best memories were spent, running around wild on said farms. Unsupervised. Lots of accidents. But
Harmed yourself a lot,
that's
did you?
part of growing up.
Absolutely.
That's part of growing up. So that's where I grew up.
what your grandparents, were they in the industry as well, in the farming industry?
Yeah, so, my father's parents were, my namesake. So my name's Trey Herring, but it's really Kenneth Maxwell Herring III. So my namesake, Kenneth Maxwell Herring Sr., Tom Herring, he was a farmer and, did hogs, cows, all types of crops. On my mother's side, my grandparents were they owned a red and white. So back before you had grocery stores, you had smaller stores, if you will, corner stores.
Sure.
And so they owned one of those. And then when the first A&P came to town, my granddad kind of realized, that's going to be bad for business. So he eventually he bought a restaurant that was right down the block. So eventually they closed the Red and White, Heath's Red and White, and opened up Heath's Family Restaurant. And so that's what they did for probably the last 20 years of their career. They ran that diner. And so I was fortunate enough, I'll tell everybody, the day you hear that I've passed away and gone from this earth, don't cry. Smile, because I'm going to be up in heaven eating my grandmother's fried chicken. That's a fact. I
love it.
I miss it. But
I miss my grandmother's cooking too, man.
And so I was fortunate enough to grow up in her kitchen and to appreciate, what's such a big part of Southern culture, which is the cuisine.
Absolutely.
So,
And
and hospitality.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you remember any particular type of bourbons or the liquor your grandpa might have drank back in the day, or your dad used to drink back in the day?
Yeah, on either side, my grandparents didn't drink.
Okay.
They were teetotalers, but my father was a George Dickel man.
Really?
And I got to tell you, I remember sneaking into the cabinet, trying some George Dickel, and I could not stand it. And to this day, I cannot stand it. No offense to the guys at George Dickel. I think it's horrible whiskey. And the fact that they're out there selling it now, single barrels, and people are sourcing their barrels and selling them for $80, I think it's horrendous. But, what can you say? Everybody, I will say this. That's my opinion. And I will say that a person's taste buds are more unique than their fingerprints. And so everyone tastes something different. And so, I say that jokingly, obviously, about George Dickel, but just me personally, there's a flavor there that's so unique that I don't like. So.
Do you remember the first bourbon that you either snuck or was presented to you?
Well, here's the thing: is that really it wasn't bourbon, Kirk.
Okay.
It was moonshine.
It was moonshine.
Let's go ahead and throw that out there. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in rural eastern North Carolina. You got farming.
Sure.
And actually, distilling is nothing more than a value add to farming. I mean, that's the reason that it came about, is that you would have farmers that would have too much rye or too much corn, and so a way that they could turn that crop into a product that they could sell and make more profit on was to distill. And of course, you have to realize that a lot of the farmers that came down into North Carolina, they came in through Pennsylvania, kind of got chased down the Appalachians and came into North Carolina. They were from Scotland, and so that tradition of distilling that I'm fortunate enough to be a part of actually traces its way back to Scotland, in that manner. So, of course, you grow up in Eastern North Carolina, moonshine's going to be around. The first that I recall is me and my friends would go out and camping. We were, I don't know, probably 14 or 15. We would get dropped off at a field. This place called Old Sootie's Place. It was an old homestead that had burned down. Just chimney was left. There was a tobacco barn in the back. And my buddy Chris, his family had, if you guys remember those Jeep Samurai, Samurai Jeeps.
Oh, yeah.
They had one, and those things were like really easy to hardwire. So we would hotwire that, and we'd go down to this gentleman's farm who was a farmer that just happened to moonshine.
Okay.
And he kept his moonshine in gallon milk jugs.
Sure.
In the barn, and so we would hotwire the Samurai, drive it down the road, go steal a gallon of moonshine, go back to camping where we had the bonfire, and yeah, that's how it all began. And
that's an amazing story.
I got drunk one time, and it was an awful experience, and I didn't drink again until I graduated college.
Really?
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
And now you own a bourbon company.
Look
to
at
help
me now.
Everybody get a
Look at me now.
happy buzz.
You know?
Everything's come full circle,
Yeah,
bro.
That's a full
does.
circle.
You still drink White Dog now?
Of course. Just not at 130 proof.
And what schools did you go to?
Schools. Spring Creek was I went to several schools. I guess you could say I was a bit of a handful as a kid.
My mother would agree with you from that standpoint about me as well.
Yeah. So I bounced around to a lot of schools. I started North Drive, then went to Spring Creek, then Eastern Wayne, St. Mary's, which was a Catholic school. I went to Catholic school in 8th grade. Talk about for a country boy from the eastern part of North Carolina, that was an experience.
I bet.
The funniest thing that I remember from going to Catholic school is that you would take the class where they teach you about the Catholic beliefs. And it was kind of one of those things, you just have to
Religious
confess
studies.
and you can pretty much get away, you can pretty much get a pass on anything. And I was
You
like,
get a credit.
whoa.
It's a credit.
So basically, as long as I don't kill somebody, all I got to do is confess and I'm good. All right. So my mom picks me up from school. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to switch over to Catholicism. She's like, the hell you are. She's like, you're a Baptist and you're going to stay a Baptist. Of course, now I'm a Methodist.
Right.
I'm in the liquor business. So.
Well, you got to do you, right?
Hey, baby, don't we all? So, yeah. So that was my school. And then, of course, I went to college. I spent a semester at UNCG. Actually went for acting and directing.
Awesome.
And, which is pretty crazy. Realized that was not going to take me anywhere. So dropped out after my first semester, came home, actually started my first company and went to school at Mount Olive College at night. Went to night school.
And what was the first company?
Let's see, the first company, I started a hot sauce company back even before that. But that company that I started whenever I was going to Mount Olive was a fundraising company.
Okay.
So basically we would raise money for local rescue squads and fire departments and things like that.
It's pretty rad, man.
great.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, this was a nice little part of the backstory. We're going to dive into some other segments here, but it's good to kind of hear where you came from and
That's
how
where
it
I
all
came from.
grew to where we're at now.
That's where I'm at now.
All right. Thank you. We'll be back in a moment.